Hey guys, I hope everyone's well. It's Dr. Leith. This is for career counseling. I'm trying a new recording program, so we'll see how it goes. Excuse me. I hope everyone's doing well. I want to check in real fast. I'm in a different room in my house this time. You can see one corner. That means I've got two walls in my house. I hope everyone's doing okay, that you're taking care of yourself, that your families are well. I know some of you are probably concerned about what does this mean for the semester and your graduate education, and I know all the faculty are trying their best to make sure you are all feeling really confident going into the NCE and with practicing, but I also want you to know that you can always reach out to us. You can always reach out to me now or in the future for more information or if you need help. But you've got this. You understand it. This isn't what anybody expected, and so do always feel free to say, "Hey, I want some more information on this, more clarification on that," because I want to make sure that you go into the profession feeling confident. So today we're going to talk about Krumboltz and then social cognitive career theory. See if this works here. All right. So Krumboltz, he thought that, or thinks that learning takes place through observation and experience, and that sort of makes sense, right? So when you take those concepts, observation and experience, you kind of arrive at the conclusion that career selection is based on your experience, what you've seen, what you've done, and what you've learned, as opposed to maybe something being prescribed to you, like you're gonna do this. It's just another way of looking at career development. And so some of the factors that he highlights, or I guess the four most important factors that he highlights for career development are genetics, surprisingly, is the first one to come in and bring that up. Special abilities, and we'll talk about each of these in a second. The environmental conditions or special events in the person's life, your learning experiences, and task approach skills. So genetics, this was a very CBT focused kind of person, a very solution focused person. So giftedness, you might have a strength, you might have an ability, you might be gifted with math or with numbers, you might be gifted with like physical strength, and so you're able to do more physical jobs. He would also bring up the opposite of disabilities, right? Or just a place in between, right? You're not going to see someone like me playing professional basketball, right? Someone who's not 7 feet tall. And so he would bring, oh my, the sun is dipping on me here. Hang on. All right. Well, that was shocking. So disabilities and giftedness also play a role. If you have natural talents, whether they be cognitive or physical, or maybe you're really in tune with this, but if you have some innate ability, that plays a role because you might want to play off of your strength. I would be very successful at this or that because I can take advantage of this strength. Environmental, just like it sounds, social conditions. So what's going on around us, your family, right? So what emphasis does your family put on careers, jobs? What messages did you learn about jobs and careers? Find one where there's some prestige or a job is a job. Did you watch a family member start with nothing and build up? Was your family someone who worked by themselves? The job market, right? What is available? What's in demand? What pays? All of that stuff, which we kind of covered in past theories. Learning experiences, just like it sounds, the stuff that you learn. So instrumental learning experiences, so stuff that happens to you. What happened before, during, and after? I did this, then this thing happened, right? That very structured, I guess it would be REBT kind of focus, where what was the antecedent, what were the behaviors, what were the consequences? Did that work? Did that not work? But then really important is the associative. So the younger the client, the more we would expect to see this. They have lots of associative learning experiences. They're observing, they might be watching an older sibling, they might be watching their family, watching their friends. This worked for them. I have a friend who got a job here, they got paid lots of money. I have a friend who worked here and they said that management was terrible. Things like that. Don't take this job, work for that job, right? So observation of others. And then task approach skills. So put another way, this was just a fancy relabeling of something you already know. This is your ability to handle a given task, how you approach a task. So your work habits, I know to get a full 8 hours of sleep, to eat breakfast. Think of study skills in school. I know that I have to study in a quiet place that's not my home. I know that I work really well in a group. I know that I don't work well in a group. That I need to really practice before doing a presentation. Things like that. Does the person have these, and what are they? Can they be learned? Which the answer is yes, and maybe that's what you work on in counseling with this person when they're coming in saying, I'm struggling getting a job or keeping a job. And so we might ask, how do you handle conflict? So what do you do in counseling according to Krumboltz? Man, I'm really regretting this slide design choice. So some behavioral things. We want to reinforce positive, right? Not just positive. You want to reinforce positivity, and that means information seeking and career decision making. So the positive aspects of that. Where are you getting the information from, right? So positive, think healthy. What's a healthy source of information? Not just happiness, right? Not positive in mood, but positive in this is an affirmative place to get my information, right? I'm not going to just rely on the kid down the block, right? I'll ask around, is this a reliable source? Is this a good way? Am I using ONET? Am I emailing potential employers versus just going off of word of mouth? Positive aspects of career decision making, right? People, when we're talking about a career, we're not talking about an immediate fix. So someone who's caught up on, well, I just want to get a job where all my friends are at, or where I can meet guys or girls, or where I can party on the job or something like that. We want to find healthier things to decide, right? And you can see that scales up with age. The younger they are, they probably are very interested in working with their friends. When I was a teenager, there were only so many places that hired in my hometown. I went to work at HEB, and it was really cool. I got to work with all my friends, right? As you get older, it's like, well, I can't keep doing that because I don't want to be at this company forever, or I want more money, or I want more time, right? And so that's what we would emphasize in counseling. What are some things that you really should consider, not just all the fun stuff, right? Role models, right? You can be the role model, right? And that's why even with y'all, sometimes I'll say, like when we talked about human development, and I said that was my weakest area, it's not that I like bragging about an area I don't know, but it's to show, hey, look, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have a perfect understanding of everything. It's being professional, right? Guys, when you're working with other guy clients, right? Showing how to be in tune with emotions, right? Women, when working with a female who maybe hit a glass ceiling, right? And you want to share your experience. This is how I handled it, right? In any case, how you handled adversity and things like that. And that's where I want to emphasize appropriate use of self-disclosure comes in, but also in how you carry yourself, right? Your job is a counselor, and so how do you dress for that job, right? How do you present yourself? The associative learning, right? They'll learn from what you share with them. If you do group counseling, they will learn from their group participants. And helping them identify role models in the community, right? Who do you look up to? There are faculty members in our own department who I often go to and ask how did they handle it. I look at their career and I think, wow, I wish I could get to that point, and I try and emulate that. So I mean, this is just kind of basic things that we see. Who do you want to emulate? What about them do you consider successful, and what do you want to take from their career? Role playing, everybody knows what that is, right? So a basic role play, whether it's on how to do a job interview, right? Let the client be themselves. You play the other. And it can be a job interview, helping them with that skill. How to handle conflict, right? Be the other person. That helps you kind of assess where's the problem on the client end. And then let your client kind of start flexing some of those interpersonal effectiveness skills. You can also flip it around. You can be the client, right? You play your client and let your client play the other person, or let the client play them. And that's a good reflective way of letting them see, especially when they don't understand. Maybe you're having a difficult time articulating a point. They're having a hard time understanding your point. So you flip it around and you say, okay, Ben, I'm gonna be you, and I'm gonna handle this situation the way I think you would, and I want you to be your coworker that you have a problem with, and then I would act like Ben. That way he can say, in an ideal world, of course, right? He'd be like, oh, you mean that I have a tendency to like wave my hands in people's faces and raise my voice? I didn't know I was doing that, right? Audio and videotaping, especially for if you're helping someone get ready for a job, sitting up straight, right? How they enunciate, things like that, whatever the case may be. And simulation, right? So job experience kits, right? So you might make a little care package, right? It's one of those things that you can get really creative with. And inside I have here, like, here's an instruction on how to tie a tie, and here's some nice card stock to write a thank you card for the person, on how to on giving a thank you card for the interview and things like that. Finding some introductory courses for them that might be in the community, and then helping them find some volunteer work. So this comes up often when you work with young adults. How am I supposed to get a job when every job is asking me for experience? Doesn't mean they always like the answer, and it doesn't mean I always agree with the answer, but volunteer work is one way to accrue experience. And of course, that has its own set of things, right? I'm giving up time and not getting paid, and that's a different issue, but that is one way to help people get experience to see if they like something. Have you thought about volunteering before committing to this whole career path? Goal clarification, very important. What do you want? And we spent a lot of the semester talking about that, right? What is your goal? Is it to own your own business, to make a lot of money, to be happy, whatever it is? And even outside of career counseling, this is still a good technique. And take that goal and you break it into smaller goals. So someone says, I want to own my own restaurant. So what do you got to do to do that? Well, I got to get funding. Okay, what do you got to do to do that? Well, I've got to put together a prospectus. What do you got to do that? Right? So you're breaking it down with them, right? A lot of times people see the finish line, but not all the stuff in between. Looking for troublesome belief. So the stinking thinking, right? Trying to find it. If I don't make $1 million, then I'm a failure. I had a client who very much thought that. I have to do this thing that I'm intensely unhappy with, because if I don't make a lot of money, then I'm a failure, right? So where does that come from? Looking for inconsistencies between their actions and their words. So in other words, they're talking the talk or they're walking the walk, right? So when I work with college students and they're like, I want to be a lawyer. Yeah, I want to be a counselor. Even when I work with some of our own students, no one in this class, of course, but I want to be a counselor. I want to have a private practice. I want to be a professor. And then they skip class. They do shoddy work. they're not putting in the effort or the time, right? So it's inconsistent. You really want this goal that's really valid and worthwhile, and then your behavior is this over here, and the two are not matching up. And so what do we got to do to kind of reduce that inconsistency? And then cognitive rehearsal, helping them come up with a mantra, uh, positive statements to reduce negative self thoughts. So when they start saying, nobody's going to hire me, what can I contribute? I'm just this, I'm just that. Coming up with ways to kind of work through that. Krumbolt's big theory was happenstance learning theory, which is kind of like it sounds. It's happenstance. We want people to take the bottom line for Krumboltz is he wants people to be proactive in their life. He wants them to take charge, right? You cannot passively sit and wait for opportunity to come to you. You're gonna have to A, go out and look for opportunity, and B, sometimes that means you gotta grow the skills needed to take advantage of an opportunity. You can have an opportunity come to you and you miss out on it simply because it wasn't your time, right? You didn't have the skills needed to do that. He's anti-settling, right? Don't just take a job for the sake of it. That everybody's got to keep the lights on, so you got to work. He acknowledges that, but career satisfaction is what we're aiming for. He thinks career assessment should be used to stimulate learning. What was it like answering some of those questions? Did any of those questions call out to you? But he was against, hey, take this test and it's going to tell us what job you should have. Taking advantage of unplanned events, right? So this is sort of like you go out to eat and you run into the director of a counseling agency, you're at a rally and you meet somebody. So how can you take advantage of that? Whether that be having a card in your wallet to give to people or just knowing how to talk to people. The way he would apply happenstance theory in career counseling, and again, this is in the context of things happen, being ready for them. Be curious, right? Fostering healthy curiosity. Explore what comes out of it. It never hurts to ask questions. I'm pretty sure everybody here can probably relate, certainly I can, where I don't pursue something because what if I don't get it, right? What if they say no, or what if I fail? Well, that's not being curious. That's just wondering, right? Like, explore the opportunity. What's the worst that happens? And sometimes our clients need to be talked through that a little bit and help understand where the fear comes from and how maybe it's getting in the way. Persistence, really big deal. When you don't get what you want or you fail, and these things happen, and certainly I imagine many of us can relate to it, learning to kind of pick yourself up again and move forward. That doesn't just mean get over it, it means learn from it. And then all the counseling stuff, all the emotional stuff, working through it in a healthy way. But learning that, okay, this one didn't work. What can I take from the experience to try again? So I had a failed job interview, reflecting on it after I'm maybe done licking my wounds and mourning and stuff like that. What can I learn from it? Flexibility. Not everything goes the way that we want it to. And I don't mean in the way that we don't get what we want. Sometimes it doesn't look the way we expected it to look. And learning to be flexible, not just jumping ship and giving up on the whole idea because it didn't match with the way we thought it should match. Being optimistic. So again, he means being proactive. This is a good thing. I'm going to try it out. I hope that it works out. And risk taking, just like it sounds. So in counseling, normalizing the planned happenstance. I like that term, planned happenstance. It means being ready in case an opportunity presents itself. So helping the client understand that. Helping transform curiosity. So you get to this point in the session where you're saying, if you could be anything you wanted to be, what would you do? And they say, well, I'd be an artist. Okay, well, what keeps you? And they'll say, I got to make money. I got a family to feed. And you start saying, well, what would it be like? And does it have to be so do or die? Does it mean you have to give up your job right now? Right? Or does it mean that you can maybe, let's find an art show, right? And see what that's like. It's the baby steps. Um, Teach clients to produce desirable chance events. That means helping the client understand you got to get in there. You can't just sit, right? You can't just go to even a job fair, right? You can't just go to a job fair and then do nothing and walk out with a bunch of job offers. You go there, and I'm hoping I'm going to run into someone who can set me up, and I'm ready to do that. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go in and I'm going to feel confident, and I have my card and my resume, and I'm ready to go, right? They are part of that happenstance equation. And then teaching them to overcome blocks, right? So I get really nervous. I start self-deprecating. How can we get past that? I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't, things like that, so I can clarify. Now we're going to switch over a little bit to a slightly different theory, social cognitive career theory. It's going to sound very similar to Krumboltz, but it's different. We'll go over that. Very reliant on self-efficacy. So you've noticed we've gone from the very beginning of this very prescriptive, here is your strongest trait, and here's the factor that the job needs to, the way the person feels about themselves is also a factor in their career satisfaction. So self-efficacy, self-regulation, and their personal schemas. So their thoughts up here. Some of the differences between Krumboltz and social learning, or social cognitive career learning. Krumboltz was very much as cognitive behavioral. You see things, you experience things, and you learn things. Social cognitive is, it's all up here, what you think about yourself and about the event. Focus on learning versus focus on choice. So again, Krumboltz, the passive learning, the observation, and social cognitive, getting in there. I'm choosing to do this. I'm choosing to work on myself. I'm choosing to grow skills. Krumboltz, focus on happenstance and being prepared for this opportunity. Social learning, focus on your self-efficacy. I will be okay if this doesn't happen. Krumboltz, application focus, right? So we're spending all our time in session, focus on how to present yourself, how to emphasize your strengths, how to interview well, how to negotiate, all that stuff. Applying it. Social cognitive is very research. So I want you, right? So if Samantha's in session with me, I'm going to say, go look at this stuff, go take these assessments, go do that. So you're learning about yourself. You're armed with knowledge to make your decisions. So the basic tenets of social cognitive is there's still that interaction between the environment and people. Careers related to behavior, self, thoughts, and personal beliefs, right? So again, that more internal dialogue, self-efficacy, culture, and experiences. There's still that part about ability, right? So this is what Krumboltz was referring to with genetics. For social cognitive, now we're looking at, do you have an ability? Doesn't matter if it's genetic or not. It's just, do you have the ability to do this? Self-efficacy and belief in oneself, right? So again, how does the person think about themselves? So now we're starting to pull in that interpersonal stuff into the career domain, right? Your outcome expectations and goals. To kind of go in a little bit deeper, self-efficacy, judgments about one's abilities to do something and to carry out action. So it might be hard to imagine, but I've had many clients who say, I won't fill out the job. I want to, but I just can't. But I won't. But I don't. Right? I know I should, but I just can't bring myself to do that. That's self-efficacy, right? I can't do that. I can't interview. I'm going to mess it up at the interview. I always get to the interview and then I mess it up, right? Self-efficacy. Outcome expectations, right? They're setting reasonable expectations, right? So when you're younger, the sky's the limit, right? But it's things like, I know right out of grad school, applying to be the director of some gigantic mental health agency, that's gonna be a reach, right? Versus someone who has years and decades of experience, right? I'm right out of college or right out of law school, and I want to be a partner at a prestigious law firm. Well, I mean, I guess it could happen, but is it likely, right? So just kind of having healthy, realistic expectations and goals. Like, what are your goals? So my goal is to, like, for y'all, my goal is to be a counselor. So I went to grad school. I'm gonna get an internship. I'm gonna get an internship at this place so I learn these skills, get my license, open my practice. I'm gonna start with some clients and then build it up, right? So you're making those goals very similar to Krumboltz strategy. Man, I got a lot of redundancy in this PowerPoint, huh? Self-efficacy, belief in oneself. Oh boy, I just went through the next 4 slides. Oh yeah, support and barriers. So here, and I think Krumboltz would also emphasize, I think he would acknowledge it. I don't know that he would emphasize this aspect of it. But helping the client identify support and barriers. So support can be everything from, I have a really supportive partner or spouse, to a supportive family member, to I have the means to go to grad school or to go to trade school or to do whatever. And barriers, right? And for both of these, there are real and perceived barriers. So an objective or real barrier is just like it sounded. It's ones that we can see. So one barrier might be, I want this job, but it means I have to relocate, but I have family here and family obligations here. I can't leave. Or the process of getting this type of job is I have to go to school again and I don't have the finances to do that. Perceived barriers would be things like, that's going to be really difficult. I can't go back to school, I'm too old. Or I can't do this, I'm too young. I won't fit in. Or what if, right? What if someone's mad at me, right? So looking at barriers and support. The perceived ones, can they be dispelled, right? Can they work through that? And the objective ones, or the concrete ones, can they be managed somehow? You don't just say, oh yeah, that costs money. Well, right? You would try and figure it out. So the linchpin for this theory is the greatest outcomes are when a person has high ability, right? So they are capable of doing it. They have the whatever it takes. They can do it naturally. That ability might be the ability to pull more out of them, keep at it. High self-efficacy. I can do this even when I'm struggling. This is really hard. I can pull it out, but the best outcome, I'm really good at this. I have a natural ability and I know it. And what else? Motivation, right? Because you can have a lot of talent and you can know you have a lot of talent, but it's all for nothing if you're just going to sit there and do nothing, right? If you just aren't going to take advantage of it. So high ability, high self-efficacy, and motivation. So how do we work with clients? So our interventions, what would your counseling strategies look like? Expanding their interests, right? So what are some things you'd be interested in, and digging and digging and digging, trying to figure out, what are you into? What do you want to do? Overcoming the barriers, right? So that starts with identifying them. Identifying support, and how to work with that support without maybe going to the well one too many times, without taking advantage of the support so much that the support disappears, and working on self-efficacy. So even with career counseling, most of the semester has seemed like we don't get into like this interpersonal stuff. This is a good example. Where does that self-doubt come from? Oh, again, I'm regretting my choice of slide design, but I don't want to mess up this whole thing. So this is kind of what the model looks like. Oh, where's my mouse? Now, I guess you guys can't see it, but we start at self-efficacy, and self-efficacy affects learning experiences and outcome expectations and interests, because I start then tailoring my experiences based on my self-efficacy. So for example, with me, I don't do stuff that has a whole lot of numbers because I feel like I'm bad at math, so I avoid math things. And that affects my choice goals, right? So no, I guess I'm not going to build rockets because there's too many numbers. And that affects my action. So now I just don't look at anything that has numbers. Then we go back to the top. My choice actions influence my performance domains and attainment. So that means that when I'm in school, I don't do all the numbery stuff and the math stuff, but and so that skill doesn't grow. But what does grow is all the non-math stuff, the social sciences, the psychology stuff, the counseling stuff, all the stuff that makes me the wonderful and gifted counselor that I am. So I'm attaining a different set of skills. And that goes back to self-efficacy, because now I feel like I'm really gifted with mental health stuff and teaching. And so now this time it affects learning, because now I'm going to, well, how can I be an even better counselor? How can I be a better counselor educator? How can I be a better counselor supervisor? And the cycle repeats itself, right? That's going to do it for me, everybody. Thanks for bearing with me on all this. I hope each of you as well. If you have questions or concerns, let me know. Keep taking care of yourselves, and I promise, even though we got thrown this massive curveball this semester, I promise we'll get you to being the wonderful school counselors and licensed professional counselors that you want to be. You'll do fantastic. I'm here for you, as are all the faculty. So let me know what you need. I hope each of you as well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.